Alright guys, so this is the carburetor. This is a Mikuni carburetor. I didn't really even say that, so actually, where does it say? It says right here. It says Mikuni right here. I'm going to show you how to do the carburetor kit. So now this is the carburetor kit for the rear, but it's basically the same. This is for the rear carburetor. The only difference between the rear carburetor and the front carburetor on this via parts is this one has a gasket on the rear carburetor. This one has an O-ring, and I'll show you that O-ring when we get to it. And here's the old O-ring that I pulled out yesterday. So that's what it looks like, but we'll get that out and take a look. So first thing you want to do, this is the float bowl. This is the way it sits in the this fills up with gas, and there's a float in here that keeps this full. You want to, otherwise if you were to give it a whole bunch of gas at once, it would empty the float bowl and you'd run out of gas. So it's kind of like a small reservoir. And what we're going to do in here, and we're going to pull this off, change that gasket that goes around here, because that's one of the ones that leaks a lot. It gets a lot of abuse, so it can leak. And the other thing is that basically the plunger that the float controls is the other thing that we're going to change out. It's called the needle and seat, and I'll show you that when we get to it. So doing this, if you didn't, a way you can drain the float bowl is this is a set screw, this is a drain. So if you loosen the set screw, you can drain out the gas. We already drained it out. I just dumped it into where I was. So otherwise you're going to have gas all over. So we're going to just go ahead and take these 4 screws off. Like I said, I did this the other day, and I filmed the whole thing and realized that my audio wasn't working, so it looked just absolutely retarded. So decided to do it again for you, even though I don't need to do it. So it's these 4 screws. Alright, so when you pull this off, here's that O-ring gasket I was talking to you about. It just goes right around there and just seals it so the gas doesn't leak out. This is the float system on this. These are the floats. They're actually, as you can see, they just float up and down based on how much gas is in there. It's attached to this little plunger right here, and then that goes into a seat, and that seat and plunger determine how fast it fills up. So the way we're going to get into this, alright, we'll go this way. Alright, so in the carburetor kit, again, as you can see, this is the seat, and there's the needle. So when I will go ahead and pull these ones out, and then we'll just put them back in, because that's what we need to do. So in order to get to those, you have to pull out the float assembly. And the way you do that is there's a pin right here, this little pin, and it just slides out. It's not pressed in or anything like that. It just slides out. You may have to grab a pair of pliers. Luckily I don't have to. Now when you pull this out, you just got to be careful, because that little needle is attached to this float assembly. You just pull it out nice and slow. As you can see, there's the needle, and it's just attached like that. Well, it doesn't sit like that. Normally it sits like that normally. So it just kind of hangs on there, and as this float goes up and down, it pushes this plunger up and down, and that's what determines how much gas. This is the seat. So now, to get the seat out, it's just this one little screw, and it just slides out. So I'm just going to take that out real quick. And it does help to have a magnetized screwdriver for this sometimes, so you don't do that. Hopefully you got it okay. Alright, so this slides out. There it is, does have an O-ring. Grab those pliers from the bike. So that it does have an O-ring, so it does slide up. I just need a way to grab it. So as you can see, there's an O-ring. There's a little filter on the bottom, just to help keep the filter or the gas cleaned out. All right. So now, when I would normally have done this, I did this yesterday. Is I go through here with carburetor cleaner and just clean all of this out. Make sure that there is no rust or varnish or anything like that. So you just clean it all out. These are the jets. I'm not going to mess with the jets today. I didn't make enough changes on the bike to warrant that, so we're not going to mess with those. We're just going to do the carburetor rebuild on it kit. So again, you clean it all out, and then basically that's it. We reassemble it, and I'll show you how to reassemble it. This is, since it's an O-ring, you want to make sure that this is wet. Gases are very dry, so what I usually use is some seafoam, which is a gas treatment, but it also has a little bit of lubrication in it. We don't want to use water or anything like that, because water and gas don't mix well. But this stuff can be in gas, so if you do get a little in the gas, it won't matter. But you want to make sure that that O-ring is a little bit wet so it doesn't roll as you push that in. Now this is the part where it actually pays to have a magnetized screwdriver, which I don't have right now. So just trying to get this little screw back in that hole without dropping it 45 times. And the thing about anything on a carburetor is you should never have to force anything. Carburetor is very soft aluminum, so you don't want to over tighten. You don't want to try and strip. If it gets cross-threaded, I mean, you'll end up buying a new carburetor. So, alright, so now we've put the seat back in. Now we just put the needle and the float assembly back in. Again, this is the needle. It has a little bit of rubber piece there that closes off in the seat, depending on how much gas it needs. Okay. And that just slides right in. Then we put our pin back in, and again, this is not a press fit pin, so it should just slide right in as soon as it lines up. You just gotta find the sweet spot, line it up, and it'll just slide right in. Now it's not a press fit because it can't go anywhere because of this here, and then once the float bowl is back on, it can't go out that way, so it's not going to go anywhere. Alright, so that's the rebuild on the bottom half of the carburetor. Now you just do the same thing on this, put a little bit of seafoam or any kind of gas lubricant, and then you just make sure you don't lose that O-ring. Sometimes you can, as you put it in, it'll fall out or something. You got to make sure you don't pinch it. The way I got the other one out, it is kind of a pain. I used a little awl like this. They do make a seal puller that has like a hook, but this worked just as good. You just got to be really careful not to gouge out the aluminum, because that'll help make it. It'll leak if you put big gouges in it. So. The other thing I like to do on basically on everything is get everything started before you tighten anything, just in case things have to move around a little bit to line the threads up. After this, I'll show you how to check out the diaphragm for the air side. This is the fuel side. We'll check the diaphragm. I didn't buy a diaphragm kit. I didn't need one, but we'll open it up and I'll show you how it is. What it looks like underneath there, and we can do a visual. Again, you want to make sure everything's tight, but not too tight, because again, this aluminum is soft and it's easy to bust out sides if you over tighten. Okay, so this is the diaphragm side. Now, when I do this, I just make sure that I keep these bolts. I just know where these are. It's not that big a deal, but once it gets put on the bike, if you can keep track of them this way now, then when you put it back on, it's a lot easier. So, okay, so now this is spring loaded. There's a huge spring in this diaphragm. So you want to make sure that you hold it. Anytime that there's a hole like this, like a divot down, that usually means that there's a spring under it. That's the seating spot of the spring. So there's a couple other ones. See, like this. This has a spring in it as well. So we'll just take these off, loosen everything up first. Again, we're just going to do a physical inspection on this. Make sure that there's no rips, tears, anything like that in the diaphragm. Again, you want to hold this down as you take out the last bolt, because that spring will shoot all over your garage if you don't. It's a lot longer than you think it is. So it's not a real stiff spring, but it's long. So there's the diaphragm spring, and it goes all over the place. Again, you want to clean this all out. Make sure you have no gunk or anything. So this is the diaphragm. Your main thing you want to look for is to check for any tears, or if a lot of times it'll get unseated, and you'll see it'll be like rolled over, and there'll be a gap, and you'll have some air leakage, and that's not good. It's attached to this plunger here, so if you want to push it up, just push it up softly, otherwise you'll pull it up, push it out of its groove here. It does have a dowel here. That's a seating dowel, so that it's kind of hard to see, but that's how you know where it goes. So as you can see, there's nothing, no tears, no holes. It looks like it's seated pretty good. So I'm just going to alright, so what I did is, I see that needle in there, I got it out of its spot, so I just have to I don't have to force it, I just have to line it back up. There you go. And then that goes back down. So, alright, so that's the diaphragm side. Now they do make diaphragm kits that comes with a new spring and a new diaphragm. Like I said, I didn't think I needed one, and after tearing it apart, I realized I didn't. If I did, I would have bought one. So, alright, so basically just in the reverse, reseal, put it back together, the exact opposite. It does have a spot here. That's where the dowel goes, so you know that this goes this way. And be very careful to not pull it off its where it's seated, because again, that'll give you a huge vacuum leak. I'm going to run this down until it's snug, just so I don't have to hold the plate while I put the other ones on. And the whole time while we're doing this, we would be cleaning anything that needed to be cleaned. I've already done it. I guess I should have said that a little bit better. I just use a standard carburetor cleaner. You know, it doesn't matter what kind or what brand, whatever's local. And then I used canned air. You can use air compressor. You just have to be really careful when you use an air compressor. especially on like that diaphragm, because you can blow that diaphragm out. But we just want to make sure everything's nice and clean. Even a speck of dirt in a carburetor can really cause havoc. Again, we're going to run it down until it's snug around all 4 of them, and then tighten it down a little bit. Okay, and there you go. That's the rebuild on the carburetor.